Once upon a time, there lived a miller who had 3 sons. When he grew old and his time in this world slowly came to an end, he left his sons the little he owned, an old mill, a donkey, and a cat. The brothers divided the inheritance among themselves. The eldest received the mill, the middle son the donkey, and the youngest was left with nothing but the cat. The youngest son sighed sadly. "My brothers will be able to make a living," he thought. "But what about me? Just me and a cat." He sat down on a bench and lowered his head. Then something very strange happened. The cat, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, stepped closer and spoke in a gentle, wise voice. "Don't be sad, my lord. If you trust me, everything can change." The boy looked up in surprise. The cat went on. "All you need to do is have a pair of boots made for me. I'll take care of the rest." Although the boy didn't fully understand what the cat meant, he did as the cat asked. Once the cat put on his boots, he looked quite unusual, yet at the same time very determined. Happily he set off into the world. He walked across meadows, through trees and fields. Along the way he stopped in sunny clearings where he gathered fragrant forest fruits, sweet strawberries, blueberries and raspberries, which he carefully placed into a basket as a gift for the king. Before long the cat arrived at the royal palace. He bowed politely to the guards and kindly asked if he might present a small gift to the king, a gift from his lord, whom he called the Marquis of Carabas. The king was delighted and gladly accepted the basket full of fresh forest fruits. The next day the cat set off once again. He walked through the meadows, carefully choosing the most beautiful flowers he could find. From these colorful meadow blossoms, he made a sweet-smelling bunch of flowers. When he arrived at the palace, he politely bowed to the guards and asked if he might present the bunch of flowers to the princess. "This gift is from my lord, the Marquis of Carabas," he said with a proud smile. The princess smiled warmly and was delighted by the lovely fragrance of the flowers. From that day on, the cat returned to the palace regularly with small gifts, always speaking of his lord as a wise and kind young nobleman. The king remembered his name well and began to wonder what a curious and remarkable young marquis he might be. One beautiful day, as the king was preparing for a walk along the river with his daughter, the cat said to his lord with a mysterious smile, "Today is an important day, my lord. Go and bathe in the river at the place I'll show you. Trust me, and you'll see that all will turn out well." The boy hesitated for a moment, wondering what the cat could mean, but in the end he did as the cat said. As he stepped into the river and began to bathe, the cat hurried along the road where the royal procession was approaching. Before doing so, however, he cleverly hid his lord's clothes beneath a large stone by the river bank. When the cat spotted the royal procession, he stopped and called out in a clear voice, "Help! Help! My lord needs help!" The king, who was passing by at that very moment, immediately recognized the clever cat who had brought him such lovely gifts so many times before. With a serious expression, the cat explained that while his lord was bathing, someone had taken his clothes and now he had nothing to wear. The king felt sorry for the young man at once. He ordered his servants to help him and commanded that the finest clothes from the royal wardrobe be brought to him. Once the young man was dressed, he looked noble and well kept, for the royal clothes made him look even more handsome. The princess noticed him right away, and the more she looked at him, the kinder and more interesting he seemed to her. The king invited the marquis to sit beside him in the coach and continue the journey with them. The cat quietly went ahead, pleased that his plan was beginning to work. Along the way, he met some movers in a meadow and whispered to them with a smile, asking them to tell the king that the meadow belonged to his lord, the Marquis of Carabas. When the king stopped and asked who owned this beautiful green meadow, they all gladly answered that it belonged to the Marquis of Carabas. The cat then went on and met people working in the fields. He kindly asked them to tell the king the same about the golden grain waving in the wind before them. When the king passed by a little later and asked again who owned the grain, he was told that it belonged to the Marquis of Carabas. The farther they traveled, the more amazed the king became by the vast lands of the Marquis of Carabas. At last, the cat in boots arrived at a beautiful, majestic castle standing in the middle of a vast countryside. People said that its owner was an ogre, very rich and powerful, because all the fields, meadows, and forests around belonged to his castle. The cat decided to visit the ogre. The ogre received him surprisingly politely and invited him inside. The cat looked around with a respectful smile and said, "I've heard you can do something truly incredible, that you can turn yourself into any animal you wish." The ogre smiled proudly and, eager to show off, turned himself into a lion. The cat was a little frightened, but then he added with a clever smile, "I've heard, though, that you can also turn yourself into a very tiny animal. That's something I can hardly imagine." Filled with pride, the ogre transformed into a tiny mouse and began scurrying across the floor. At that very moment, the cat caught the mouse with one quick, clever move, and with that, the ogre's magical power came to an end forever. Just then, the royal carriage approached the castle. The cat heard it coming, quickly ran outside, bowed deeply, and said, "Your Majesty, welcome to the castle of my lord, the Marquis of Carabas." "What, my dear Marquis?" The king smiled. "Does this beautiful castle belong to you as well? Such a courtyard and such magnificent halls are truly a sight to behold. Please allow us to enter and see inside." The Marquis took the princess's hand, and together they followed the king into the grand hall. There a table was laid with delicious treats, and the whole castle was filled with a joyful and peaceful atmosphere. The king was enchanted not only by the wonderful place, but also by the kindness and good heart of the young Marquis. The king looked at him with a warm smile and said, "I'd be delighted if you became a part of our family, Marquis." The Marquis bowed deeply, thanked them for the great honor, and that very day a joyful wedding was held in the kingdom, filled with music, laughter, and happiness. From that day on, the Puss in Boots became a respected gentleman of the castle. He no longer needed to come up with clever tricks. Instead, he enjoyed peaceful days, strolling through the gardens, basking in the sun, listening to the birds sing, and curling up on a soft cushion by the window at night. With a quiet smile, he watched as all his alert dreams came true. And so they all lived happily and joyfully for many, many years. With love, your Panda Millie.